David Grusch story. It's snowballing. The David Grusch story. Whistleblower. When you Google his name, you're just going to see whistleblower next to his name. I'm hoping that it's true information. Senator Marco Rubio is taking it seriously. Senator Harry Reid, before he passed away a couple years ago, he took it seriously, and he tried to get access to these special access programs, supposedly exotic craft, unidentified, but they're going to be more identified when they're in the hands of an aerospace company. And Senator Harry Reid tried to get access, was stonewalled and denied. He probably knew where they were supposedly held. David Grusch knows where they are supposedly held. Is it Lockheed Martin? Is it Raytheon? Is it this aerospace company or that aerospace company? We're just pointing fingers at this point because the UFO community has no idea, but they can take a guess. The Roswell incident, 1947. The memory metal is what jumps out to me. The exotic metal that when you bent it, it popped back into shape perfectly, flawlessly. Alien technology where it popped back perfectly, and it was as thin as the tin foil inside of cigarette packs. We don't have anything like that. The guy tried to hit it with a hammer, and it bounced back. They tried to burn it, it would not burn. A lot of people say, hey, if this stuff can't be destroyed, how is it scattered across the field? Supposedly, 2 of these guys were flying around, maybe checking out the fact that they were doing tests of the nuclear bomb, and supposedly the original story of Roswell, it's been suppressed so many times, the official story's changed so many times, supposedly 2 craft, 2 extraterrestrial, 2 NHI, non-human intelligence craft smashed into each other. So the memory metal, which can't be destroyed, biggest weakness is itself. Memory metal versus memory metal. Apparently it's like diamond versus diamond, and most definitely a diamond can crack and be smashed and destroyed. And it's supposedly a super hard substance, right? This memory metal, I'm sure, is even stronger than diamond. And when there's 2 craft that bump into each other, maybe there were drones, maybe there were probes. Mathematically, scientifically, if you lived in the closest sun to our sun, Sol, you're going to be sending robotic probes. You're not going to be sending people on a trip that have to be in hibernation for 1,000 years. You're going to be sending probes. And a lot of people are saying avatars. And I've actually been theorizing about avatars for a while, even before the Avatar movie. You know, Richard Garriott created the Ultima series. In the early Ultimas, you could choose. It was one of the first games that employed the choice of, do you want this character to play with or that character? One of the first games to ever employ that. And the hero of the Ultima games was called the Avatar. Richard Garriott got the name from the, I believe, Hindu belief system that avatars are like gods. And it's a hero of Britannia, the world in the Ultima universe, Caesarea, the planet. So the Avatar was just the hero. The Avatar is here. He was never meant to be a human going inside of a blue alien biological robot. But that's what has transformed into meaning to this day. And it's a very good analogy for what these NHIs might be doing. They might be inhabiting robots, biological robots, and we think it's them when it's just a virtual reality suit we're talking to and not them. I highly suspect that, and let me tell you why. Bob Lazar, here's the sport model. I just finished putting together the official Bob Lazar sport model by Testers Flying Saucer, the S4 Top Secret Area 51 Flying Saucer. Mine was broken in the fact that it didn't come with an antenna, it didn't come with aliens, so I decided just to paint the entire thing silver. That's what I wanted anyway. But Bob Lazar said the aliens, and he mostly saw them in documents that he was shown, briefings. He said these aliens were supposedly from Zeta Reticuli. At least that's what these documents he was shown said. We don't know how much of the information he was shown is 100% real. That's what he was shown. That's just what he repeated. He said the aliens, they look like grays. They look like the typical classic short grays, but they had one organ. Apparently there was an autopsy, and they only had one organ. That's it, like an organ in the middle of their chest. That's it. They didn't have a brain. They didn't have a heart. They didn't have liver, kidneys, intestine, all of that. They just had one thing in the middle of their chest. That sounds like a battery to me, and that sounds like a doll to me. It sounds like the battery of the Avatar that some non-human intelligence is possessing, controlling. It would make sense if the bodies strewn across the Roswell desert ground next to the wreckage of these flying saucers, or whatever they were, died easily, and it's no big deal because the aliens actually didn't die. Just these biological robots ceased to function. Supposedly one of the aliens lived for a couple years, but my theory is they were never living other than on a robotic biological level, having a battery system that probably died out after he was expired or whatever the case, but it doesn't sound like an actual being from another planet if it has one organ in the middle of its chest. That's very suspicious. Sounds like a battery. So I want to thank Bob Lazar again for signing this Area 51 reproduction sign that he makes on his United Nuclear website. I like it so much that I put it in a card guard, an official Ultra Pro card holder, and they actually do make them for this size. And so I'm gonna be putting this up on the wall. It's nice and protected. Really happy that Bob signed this. It's greatly appreciated. I'm gonna get another one. I think it's a very cool sign. I do believe Bob Lazar did work at Area 51. I think he knows too much. I think he knew too much. He knew John Lear. Bob Lazar knew John Lear before he worked at Area 51. I believe John Lear learned about Area 51 from his dad, the aerospace genius that he was. Told a lot of the secrets to his son, John Lear. John Lear became an information hoarder, so most definitely he hoarded true information, and most definitely he unknowingly collected rumors and hearsay. But one of the things he collected was there's Area 51. It's a cool place. Are there aliens there? I don't know. I don't even know if the alien rumors were a big thing, other than it's just a top secret place. And it wasn't even well known. But John Lear definitely mentioned Area 51 to Bob, or maybe Bob already knew. Bob did work at Los Alamos Labs, and so he is working around people who are contracting for secret projects. Area 51 employees of Los Alamos Labs were making stuff for. The undercover story was they're making a new type of shielding, top secret shielding. But what they were actually making at Los Alamos Labs was a top secret fuel source for the anti-gravity drives for these craft. Element 115 was supposedly a copper-hued metal that was cut in a very strange way, had to be machined in a very precise way, and supposedly this metal had a limited supply. So we possibly, on planet Earth, cannot create element 115. It's possibly the rarest thing on the planet, rarer than gold, platinum, anything you can think of, because supposedly it's an alien fuel source that the aliens made to power their ships. Element 115 has since been discovered. It's called Moscovian. They discovered it in Russia, named it after Moscow. They're very proud of it. It only lasted a few milliseconds and it dissipated. And recently they have been able to make it last for, I don't know, maybe 1 second, a few more milliseconds, maybe up to 6 seconds. I can't remember the exact number, but it dissipates immediately. It's a heavy metal that is apparently, supposedly, the fuel source for these craft. And Bob Lazar supposedly snuck a piece out. But that's the official story. Bob supposedly did pop some in his pocket, and it's like $1 trillion triangle, okay? So what's the official story on the piece Bob smuggled out? Well, Bob probably caught wind that they're going to fire him. So I don't know. Maybe they fired him for popping one of these in his pocket, but I think he popped one in his pocket because he knew he was getting canned. But I don't know. With all the NDAs he was signing, with all the intimidation he had to face, I probably wouldn't have popped one of these in my pocket. You think they would have better security, but I can understand the potential of actually accidentally bringing some home. Whoops. Because it does happen. Top secret flash drives are accidentally in the pockets of engineers. It happens, okay? Bob Lazar was supposedly reverse engineering this warp drive, this gravity drive. And he gave him some good ideas, supposedly, but the progress was really slow because it wasn't open to the scientific community, he said. David Grusch, the new whistleblower, high-ranking. He was a captain, commander, whatever the case, many years. He's been vetted. He's an authentic, the real deal. He might be a hero, okay? People are saying he might be a disinformation agent. That was the first thing I thought of when I heard it for the first time. I was like, is this disinformation? This is too good to be true. What? A whistleblower saying he knows where the flying saucers are? I understand the UFO community members that have been in it for years are really jaded, okay? And I don't consider myself a really diehard member of the UFO community, but I did go to a MUFON meeting. Like 15, 20 years ago, I went to a MUFON meeting, okay? And so I have been part of the UFO community just here and there sporadically. Bob Lazar supposedly did a cloud chamber experiment to prove it was element 115, and George Knapp, the reporter who broke the story on Bob Lazar, was there to witness the experiment. George Knapp said he doesn't know anything about science, especially a cloud chamber experiment. He doesn't even know what a cloud chamber experiment is. I would be in the same boat. I don't know what it is until I researched it, and supposedly some laser light was bent, or some light was bent, proving it could bend light and proving it could bend gravity. That would be interesting if you could prove that scientifically. The evidence was filmed, but it was recorded over with an episode of The Golden Girls. So it's just travesty after travesty, red flag after red flag. I understand why people are skeptical and don't believe. Why am I leaning in the direction of believing now? I don't know. Because I've been puzzling. I've been mathematically computing in my head for 30 years on the true nature of UFOs. Because about almost 30 years ago, 20-something years ago, I did see strange lights in the sky. Didn't see a physical shape, just lights. I have videos talking about one of those encounters, and I'll make a video talking about the other one. So I've seen strange things. And then I moved to another state. And then I moved back to the state where I saw the UFO activity when I was a kid. And I live in that state right now. And it happens to be near the official Central Coast, California Space Force Base. So I live near the Space Force Base. I'm going to keep my eyes on the skies, but there's no guarantee anything phenomenally strange is going to happen. I saw a potential UFO the other night, or was it a meteor? I don't know, but I do see strange things here and there, but nothing big, nothing huge. To be honest, I've never seen a confirmed, from my perspective, UFO in the sky since I was a kid. I saw one on a camping trip with my class, my school. All the kids saw it. It was a weird 8-light display of 8 lights going in circles in a weird formation for about an hour straight. And it was not a spotlight because there was no beams. 8 circles, which looked like they had a thickness. It almost looked like I was looking at the bottom of a saucer doing some light show. But the saucer itself was invisible. There was no saucer, just the light show. It looked like it was attached to something, but that something wasn't there. So a laser show is what it looked like, but it was an impossible laser show. There were no clouds in the sky, and there was nothing for these lights to bounce off of to exist where they were existing. I've seen a few videos remotely resembling what I saw, but never the exact same thing. That is one of the cooler sightings I've ever seen in my life, was that. I made a joke. All the kids laughed. All the kids turned on our flashlights. We immediately tried to reproduce what was in the sky and couldn't at all. I got a good look at the lights. Very strange incident. Speaking of lights, I have the tritium light source that I got from Bob Lazar's website. And I'm going to consider this my official UFO disclosure, UAP disclosure, extraterrestrial, NHI, alien, whatever the case, disclosure from official sources to the world. When this light source ceases to be light, this thing only has a lifespan of 5 to 10 years. It might last for 5 years, it might last 6, 7, 8, 9, because this one would happen to be manufactured 5 years ago. So it has less of a lifespan than if you got a brand new one. 5 years is a timetable a lot are talking about concerning disclosure. That you gotta wait for 5 years. It might be because Roswell will hit 80 years in 5 years. Maybe the 80-year mark is that magical, we're allowed to be told what Roswell finally was. So when this light source ceases to be light, I believe and I predict disclosure will be around the corner very shortly, very soon. So this is my own personal hourglass, my own personal little clock timer ticking down to the day the disclosure actually happens. Is it going to happen in our lifetime? I'm a fan of Art Bell, Coast to Coast AM in the 90s. I listened to it all the time in 97, 98, 99. I even called in 99. I even got it, the prediction line. I made a prediction. I said my name was Raz. I go by Razimus and have since 1999. I predicted California would have blackouts. And California did have blackouts. Art said, before you make a prediction, just call on in. Really think about it. Think. Don't just say the first thing that pops in your head. Really think about it. I really thought for a while. I really meditated and pondered and thought. I was like, California lose power? It's just what popped into my head. So I was like, okay, I'll go with that. Made the call, got in, got a ding, ding, ding. 2 years later, when Art Bell came back. Art Bell actually retired in 2000, came back in 2001. But he read the old 99 list. It was actually the New Year's episode. Y2K was a huge thing back then. So I actually got into the Y2K episode. And it was really cool to talk to Art Bell. Art Bell talked about disclosure all the time. Art Bell's guests said it's right around the corner. Back in 1997, Art Bell's guests said, oh, it's right around the corner, 98, 99. Y2K, it's gonna be a culmination. Y2K, the year 2000, and the aliens are gonna 2001, Space Odyssey, it's gonna happen. 2010, the year we make contact. It's the sequel to Space Odyssey. 2010, it's gonna be 2010. Okay, 2012. Oh, the 2012. It's gonna be the 2012, the Mayan calendar. 2012. 2013. 10 years later, 2023. So people that have been watching and hearing all these disclosure promises have been hearing them for decade after decade after decade, okay? Many ufologists have lived full, amazing lives and lived full, long lives and died, okay? And there hasn't been any disclosure. But I think people like Stanton Friedman, who I greatly respect, he passed away, rest in peace, but I greatly respect Stanton Friedman because he's one of the few people that had a really rational, logical mind. And I think Stanton Friedman would have a field day with this David Grusch stuff. But people are taking it seriously. Senator Marco Rubio is taking it seriously. We have Dr. Michio Kaku, one of the top quantum physicists on planet Earth, co-founder of string theory. He is taking this UFO topic seriously. He's giving his opinions on David Grusch. And he seems to be opening his mind more than he did back when he did interviews with Art Bell back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So this is opening the minds of the greatest physicists on planet Earth. It's going to take a snowball effect of actually legally getting Congress to force the hand of the aerospace companies that have this exotic non-human intelligence technology, these craft. I do believe they exist, which is why I'm more inclined to believe Bob Lazar was telling the truth. Can someone remote view Area 51, S4? Can someone remote view, all right, where these flying saucers look at it? If you have psychic powers, I have a tiny, microscopic amount of psychic ability, and I believe everybody on planet Earth does. So in no way, shape, or form am I saying I'm smarter with my psychic abilities than you. I'm Professor X and can read minds and enter your dreams. I can't do any of that, okay? Those that claim they can, that's great. And how about those that claim they can remote view the exact location of these NHI craft? David Grusch said they're not necessarily spaceships. That means, to me, they might be probes. He said they're not necessarily from another planet. They could be from another dimension. And when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh. that sounds a little bit too good to be true, but maybe it is true. I think he said they don't fly to outer space and from outer space. They literally blip out of existence to another dimension and blip in existence from another dimension. And that seems to line up with what experts in ufology have said for decades. A guest on Art Bell back in the day said, where do the UFOs go? They're flying around. Where do they go? They gotta have a hangar somewhere. So what do you think about the flying saucer theories of an aerospace company holding these? Now, Congress is taking it seriously enough to create a new law. The oversight committees have created a new law concerning tax money, that they're going to be withholding tax money from people spending it on these special access programs if they're associated with alien tech, non-human intelligence technology, specifically craft. That's pretty groundbreaking, all right? There's a new law. It's illegal to own non-human intelligence technology in the year 2024. So anyone who has it has 6 months to give it up, hand it on over to the government. Either A, no one has it, or B, anyone that does have it, they've been holding on to it for 80 years, or 70, 60, 50, 40 years, whatever the case. Many decades it's been held on to under extreme lock and bolt and security doors and procedures, and you got to use your eye laser scan and thumbprint, and you got, like Bob Lazar said, you got to put your hand on the hand scanner, which reads the bone length in your hands. These craft are under lock and key and under extreme high clearance security in private companies, private aerospace companies, which is why they've been able to skirt around rules of showing it to top generals and showing it to the President of the United States. Because it's just a private company. It's just intellectual property. It's just a private thing. Because it's a private thing, they think falsely that they can just hoard it and hide it and keep it a secret from the rest of the planet. That's dishonest, and it really hurts the rest of the planet. If we're actually being contacted by entities from another planet or another dimension, whatever the case, on a physical level where it can be physically, scientifically proven, it's the biggest story on planet Earth. It's the biggest story of the century. It's the biggest story of the decade. It's the biggest story of the millennium. It's huge. And why is it not being picked up by the New York Times, by CNN? Either they're holding back until they see more evidence and they're very skeptical. I'm waiting to see what happens. David Grusch might testify before cameras. We will see what happens. He already testified for 11 hours privately and showed the proof to Congress. And supposedly there's a UFO video so amazing it blew the minds of those who saw it, but you have to have a secret security clearance to see that video. So from the perspective of the masses, it's nothing, because there's nothing to see. There's no new information other than a 1933 Mussolini crash, or whatever the case, UFO in Italy. The reason David Grusch mentioned this Pope mobile from outer space, which is being made fun of to an extreme degree, is because it falls out of his NDA, supposedly. 1933, it was 89 years ago. That's a long time. And so it makes sense that would fall out of his NDA, but also because it happened on foreign soil. He can talk about it, supposedly. John Greenwald of the Black Vault is saying things aren't adding up. He's not necessarily following this protocol or that protocol because there's no protocols on talking about this or that. I think this might be a special case because of the Whistleblower Act. David Grusch joined the UFO Task Force, ATAP, whatever, all the many names it has, back in 2020, I believe. It was his job to look for evidence of UFOs. He didn't see any other than knowing people who knew where the UFOs are in hangars sitting there in private aerospace companies. And he's like, oh, well, why search YouTube videos when I can just go straight to the source? He had very high security clearance, one of the highest. At the UFO Task Force for the government, David Grusch tried to get access to the secret hangars that he was told about that house the flying saucers, and he tried to get in there, and they said, access denied. So he has to rely on other people who saw the stuff and told him about it. He said he thought it was a ruse, he thought he was being deceived, but it's a reality. It's actually sitting there. Let's go open it on up. Let's go through the official legal proceedings and get these companies to open on up their secret hangars to Congress. Not necessarily to spies and foreign forces that are going to try to take it, but to Congress, to the president, to anyone who should legally have access to knowing this stuff. So what do you think? Do we have alien technology? Are these flying saucers real? I personally think we do have them. I personally think they are real. I have a wild and a crazy theory, a new theory that you've never heard before on extraterrestrials, on what they are, who they are, how they operate. It's a wild and crazy theory that I've been puzzling over for like 20 years. And so it's not something I don't think anyone could just off the bat, oh, is it that? Because I've really been puzzling and pondering it for like 20 years. I'll share that in a future video. I really want to share this theory. I'm going to have a video just for the theory. Thank you for watching. This has been John Razimus, Hughston. Be seeing you.